observed floating seaweed? Well, they are plant-like structures but not plants. These are algae. They are the ancestral to all terrestrial plants, but they are not plants. In this video, we will be discussing the algal group. Let us understand the classification first. In the early days, only external features were used to classify organisms. This means a study of morphological structures and vegetative characteristics like the habit of the plant, the number, color and shape of the leaves and the appearance of the fruit, etc. In the other words, classification was based on superficial traits. There were several drawbacks to this artificial scheme of classification. Here are just a few. Outwardly similar species were clubbed together even though they were not closely related. For example, cacti and euphorbias have a similar appearance. The two different families evolved under similar conditions. And the system gave equal weightage to vegetative and sexual characteristics. It was unacceptable because the vegetative characters are more susceptible to the environmental influences. George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker studied the internal features of the plants and proposed the natural classification system. As the name suggests, this classification was based on the natural similarity between the organism and a comparison of both basal and derived characteristics. With improvements in genetic sequencing technology and also due to the lack of fossil evidence, phylogenetic classification study also became an important tool to understand the relationship between various plant groups. Character of a species like the color, height, structure and habitat, they were all given codes and marks, and this data is analyzed using computers. Thus, we can assign numbers and codes for each character and thus classify organisms in numerical taxonomy. In case of cytotaxonomy, cellular details are studied, which includes chromosomal study. Another kind of modern approach in research is chemotaxonomy. Chemotaxonomy resolves the uncertainties by understanding the chemical constituents of plants such as DNA sequences and protein synthesis. We can start by listing the general features of algae. Well, do they have a simple water-supported aquatic structure? Yes. Most of the algal members have a simple aquatic structures which can only exist in water. As you can see in this image, they have a thalloid body structure. So here comes the next question. Do they depend on other organisms for food? No, they are generally autotrophs as they have chlorophyll bearing cells. You can see the green color, right? And where can we see these structures? We can see these structures in moist conditions, especially on moist stones, soils and woods. In advanced forms, we can find symbiotic relationships too, like lichens. In general, they are photosynthetic eukaryotic motile or non-motile organisms. And can you define the size of an alga? No, you cannot. This is because the group contains members ranging from sub-micron-sized phytoplankton, algae, to massive forms like kelps. Also, they are observed in many forms like the unicellular structure, colonial structure and the filamentous structure. And how do they reproduce? They reproduce by vegetative, asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. So, now let us look at the process of vegetative propagation or reproduction. So they reproduce by fragmentation, giving rise to a new thallus. You can see the zoospores, right? Flagellated zoospores are the common form of asexual reproduction in algae. Upon germination, they give rise to new individuals. And the fusion of two gametes results is seen in the sexual mode of reproduction, that is formation of a zygote. Here we can categorize them into isogamous and anisogamous or eugamous reproduction. The gametes can be flagellated or non-flagellated. If the gametes are of the same size, then the process will be isogamous. Both the male and female have got the same size. And the fusion of two dissimilar gametes is termed as anisogamous. This is an anisogamous image. That is, the female has got more size than male. And in oogamous is a kind of sexual reproduction where the motile male gamete fuses with a large size non-motile female gamete. That is the egg. We all love ice cream. You may be surprised to learn that the wonderfully smooth structure of store-bought ice cream comes from a compound called agar, which is extracted from algae. So let us look some other useful aspects of algae. So they are the chief producers of energy for marine life. They form the basis of the marine food chain. Algae is used as a food source while some algae functions as food supplements. Spirulina is an example. Algin and carrageenan are commercially used for thickening desserts, puddings, and even cosmetic products. Half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is carried out by algae through photosynthesis. Algae are abundant in energy-rich compounds and they are important food source for many human societies. While on the flip side, there are toxic algae too, which can poison humans who consume seafood. Now, let us understand the classification of algae. Various attempts have been made by different scientists, and one of them is the classification of algae by Frisch. He classified algae into 11 classes. So based on the type of the pigments present, algae can be classified as Chlorophyceae, Phaeophyceae and Rhodophyceae. That is, the Chlorophyceae have got green pigment, Phaeophyceae brown pigment and Rhodophyceae, that is the green pigment. Chlorophyceae are commonly known as green algae. They are seen in brackish, fresh and salt water. So let us understand the cell structure now. They have a rigid cell wall with an inner layer of cellulose and an outer layer of pectose. The cell contains chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B pigments in the chloroplast, hence they are known as green algae. In chloroplast, there is a storage body that is known as pyrenoids which contain starch and protein. Food materials are stored as oil droplets in some members of this green algae. Green algae reproduce through vegetative reproduction, asexual reproduction and sexual mode of reproduction. Vegetative reproduction usually takes place by fragmentation or spore formation of different types of spores. Asexual reproduction is by flagellated zoospores, and the sexual reproduction may be isogamous, anisogamous or oogamous. Chlamydomonas, volvox, Eulothrix, Spirogyra and Chara are some examples of green algae. Next, we come to Phaeophyceae. Have you seen brown-colored plant-like structures near the beaches? Members of Phaeophyceae are commonly seen in marine habitats and also brackish water, and they are termed as brown algae. Different forms of brown algae can be seen from simple structures to complex structures. So, what are the features of a cell structure of a brown algae? The cellulosic wall has a gelatinous coating of algin. The body has a protoplasmic region along with vacuoles and a nucleus. The nucleus is seen towards the center of the cell. So there are different pigments in the members of this group, which include chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids, xanthophylls and fucoxanthin. Now, if you check a single plant body, three major parts can be seen. So you can see a holdfast region, and this is the region where the plant gets attached to the substratum. Stipe, the stalk region which connects the leaf-like photosynthetic organ, that is fronds. Blades are the upper portion of this structure. The food material is stored as complex carbohydrates such as laminin or mannitol. Now it's time to check the various reproductive strategies. Vegetative reproduction or propagation is through fragmentation. Asexual reproduction is through biflagellate zoospores. And these zoospores are pear-shaped structures and have two unequal laterally attached flagella for movement. So the sexual reproduction is through isogamous and isogamous or oogamous spores. The fusion of pear-shaped gametes which have flagella attached laterally occurs in water. Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminaria, Sargassum and Fucus are some members of Phaeophyceae. Rhodophyceae are commonly known as red algae as they have a red appearance. We can infer that the red color is due to the presence of phycoerythrin pigment in their body. Most members are seen in warmer areas in marine habitats while some others are seen in brackish or freshwater also. So coming to the structural complexity, the majority of organisms are multicellular structures with a complex body organization. The food gets stored as Floridian starch and glycogen within the structure. Vegetative reproduction or propagation takes place through fragmentation, asexual reproduction through non-motile spores, and sexual reproduction through non-motile gametes. The non-motile gametes help in sexual reproduction and are of oogamous type. The post-fertilization development takes place as the structure is more complex. Polysiphona, Porphyra, Gracilaria and Gelidium are few examples of this class. The study of algae is called phycology. So that's the end of the session. So let us summarize what we have learned.
Manorama Horizon. Learning made simple.